On March 18th, the Harold Washington and District Chapter of Local 1600 held an important educational about Ukraine. Hear from Lou Rosenbaum, longtime activist, and Professor Shevchenko, who discuss their analysis of what can be done to bring peace in Ukraine.
Okay, well, I thank you for the opportunity to talk here this afternoon. I really appreciate the comments that Daniel made earlier. The situation in Ukraine does sound horrific, and the war um, is certainly an attack against humanity. But I'd like to speak to a number of historical questions that are raised by this current war. And I guess I want to take off from one of the things that Daniel said early on in his presentation, talking about how the information that we're getting is not really very accurate. And I think that's really true. I'd encourage everyone to take away from this discussion today that you all have the right and responsibility to question the story that you are being fed by mainstream media and even by public television and public radio. It's woefully inadequate and often quite inaccurate historically. Second thing I want to describe is the historic context in which this war is taking place. It did not just start on February 24th, 2022, and it has roots long before the change in the Ukrainian government in 2014. Last,
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you tell your grandson to keep it down a little bit? It's kind of conflicting with your talking. I can hear him real clearly.
There's nothing going on here.
There isn't?
Not a thing.
Was somebody speaking?
No.
What? I could have sworn I heard your grandson. Okay.
No.
All right. I'm saying I'm good. All right, go ahead.
Last thing I want everybody to consider is the role that the United States has played and continues to play in world politics. I'd like you to consider what right the United States has to speak for democracy today. I haven't got very much time, and this isn't a history lecture, but in terms of context, I have 3 points to make. First of all, you're being told that there's a question of territorial national sovereignty at stake, and that there is longstanding historical independence at stake. I'd ask you to look at the map of Europe 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, to see how borders have changed over the years. In point of fact, there were no nations as we know them today 300 years ago. Very few even 200 years ago. Even Germany and Italy were not consolidated as nations until late in the 19th century. So what appeals to centuries of traditions are really often unfounded in these arguments. Second, and very much related to the first, is that some people argue that history is, as Churchill once said, one damn thing after another, or that history is constantly repeating itself, the same damn thing over and over again after another. Neither of those is true. History unfolds in a direction and in a process which is discernible and has a spiral rather than a circle that returns to the same place again and again. And this is important because we aren't just reliving the expansion of a Russian empire again, or an era of a return to feudalism. Third thing I want you to think about is the cataclysm that was World War I, and the most important conclusion of that war, that a section of the globe was roped off from capitalist expansion, at least temporarily. Initially, that section was the Soviet Union. The 60 years following the end of the war saw capitalist countries expanding as far as they could throughout the world, while those colonized by capitalism fought for their freedom, first against the domination of Europe, then against the neo-colonization by the United States. World War II and the period following that saw more territories entering the socialist camp. On the one side, you had political and social structures aimed at maximizing profit and exploitation. On the other side, you had structures that encouraged satisfying the needs of the people. And all that began to break down by the early 1980s as economic forces changed the basic way in which goods and services were produced, as more and more electronic automation was introduced both inside the socialist camp and inside the capitalist world. This instability created a class of oligarchs on both sides of the divide at the same time as driving more and more people throughout the world, including here in the United States, into poverty. That's the world situation we face today. That's what we find ourselves in. Within this world situation, some of us are independent actors. Sovereignty is a matter of relative power. Returning to the question of sovereignty. 30 years ago, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, an American historian named Sidney Blumenthal called the United States the indispensable power. That was his word. By that, he meant nothing could be done in the world without the US determining it. Francis Fukuyama, another economic historian, called the end of the Soviet Union the end of history. And by that, he meant that the US could then and forever write the direction of the world. They were both wrong, but the US has nevertheless acted as if it were true. The US continues to seek world dominance. It has two problems, mainly China, especially in the last 2 decades, but also Russia because of its historic importance and because it has a large military capability. And we've certainly seen that, including nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver them.
Lou, I think you have about a minute.
Okay, I will end. I want to return to the moral position of the United States in this campaign. We are told that the US is fighting for democracy in the Ukraine. Leaving aside the role that the US is playing in supporting the Nazis in Ukraine, we should question what right the US has to speak for democracy anywhere when it is suppressing democracy here at home. What right does the US have to speak for democracy in the Ukraine when it crushes fights for independence around the world? And why are we hearing calls for welcoming Ukrainian refugees, which I'm certainly willing to do, but we're at the same time deporting Mexican and Haitian refugees at our border or caging them, which is even worse. If we really want peace in the Ukraine, it seems to me we have to go after our own war makers at home. And we can do that every time we step up and require that the billions that are going for armaments in Europe instead go to keep public education free for all, to feed the hungry on the streets in America. The almost $1 trillion in the budget that was approved for our defense budget in December could go to disarm the war makers instead, to defund NATO, to in fact help provide vaccines around the world. And I think that's my main point. I'm done.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you so much for that lucid history. Galina?
Hi, everybody. So as I approached Hisu and Adriana 2 weeks ago, I didn't know, and that was a week, it was like a few days into that war when we just started collaborating with Danielle. I just wanted to spread the word. I wanted to scream out as loud as I can to to share what Daniel was sharing, because that friend that had the premise, he's also my friend of 20 years. And that's, we all share this history. We all expats from ex-Soviet Union, and we all come from like different parts of it. So I'm personally from Moscow, and I do speak Russian as my native language, but my last name is Ukrainian. And it's actually a name of a famous Ukrainian poet, Taras Shevchenko, who was really big on sort of Ukrainian self-awareness as a nation. He was published, one of the first poets published in Ukrainian. So to lose point, yes, Ukraine as a nation did not identify itself as a nation up until maybe 19th, early 20th century. So it was essentially never independent country before the fallout of Soviet Union. So Ukraine as a territory, the name Ukraine means basically something on the side, on the edge. Ukraine is something on the edge, Ukraina, so Krai is the edge, so something on the edge. So Ukraine is basically was the territory between Russia and Ottoman Empire. And Russian Empire as a big country was protecting all its little satellite countries, even Georgia and Armenia, all wanted Russian Empire to protect them because they were Christian and they wanted protection from the big Ottoman Empire. So, but that was years ago. That was 300 years ago. So there are all these different narratives now with like the Ukrainian self-awareness, but I think what's happening in Ukraine right now, it's identifying itself as a nation as we speak, as people that are speaking Russian consider themselves Ukrainian and stand with Ukraine through this process. So this borders, this national awareness is being made right now as we speak. And as to the point that Daniel shared, when our governments are trying to sort of compete in the, like, I'm not Russian anymore. I came to United States in '93, so as a political refugee, so I'm an American citizen now. But Russia is still in my heart. It's something that I love, and where I was born, where I lived for 21 years. So it's, and I still have a cousin there who has this Ukrainian last name just like me and has relatives in Ukraine they cannot even call because all the calls are tapped. So this is the reality we are living in. And so we as people that care about this place got together and started this organization with the lead of Daniel. And if you let me share the screen, I'm going to share our website that we just put together. We put this website together in a week. So this is what we are. It's a very clear message. There is a donate button right there. And the teams that we work with, the Ukraine teams, so some people don't want to identify themselves for security reasons, but we have people with their pictures. And yeah, so this is Natalia, who started this whole connection with Daniel. And then Pavel doesn't have a picture here, but he's the one that brings babies across the war zone. So let me take you to our Instagram channel. So if you go to our Instagram channel, we have everything. So those are the babies that were saved. This is Pavel, and he is speaking out, and all the videos are getting translated by our team members that are posting them on a daily basis from him. So he's driving back and forth, and his last message was how he was being shelled and how he feels guilty, not like taking a break and not taking people out of the zone that was bombed. So he basically said, oh, I'm so sorry, I took this little break, and these people were like people were wounded, and there were people that were his friends because he was caring about all his other babies. Like he loved his friends and relatives to sort of the last moment, and he missed the opportunity. And now they're in difficult condition, they're in a hard condition. So this is what we've done in the last 5 days. We also have a Facebook channel, and I really applaud Yav who joined in and helping me fundraise and spread the word. And we are publishing the ad with the donate button on the in the British Sci-Fi magazine vector. So thank you so much, Yav, for your support. And the trust chain works because it's incredible. When I first posted this message on my Facebook page, I made this first visual, and when I first posted the message on my Facebook page, the people that I worked with 20 years ago responded with donations. And so I have all these people on my feed telling me that how they want to help. And I, as an artist, I feel like I can help through making art and making people aware of just screaming this message out, basically. And this is the what you see on the screen is a shot from I took it yesterday at MCA at the show of Andrea Bowers, and it's such an incredible message. It's resonate. If you don't do the impossible, you shall be faced with the unthinkable, which like totally gave me chills when I saw this message. So what we are doing with this group of people, and let me show you. So this is our teams. This is our US operation. So all these people, like these people, I know for more than 20 years. So this is me, and this is all new people that I just met through this collaboration. So we are all, we all came together. We didn't even see each other. We are on Slack constantly messaging and sharing tasks to see how we can sort of divide our responsibilities. We have a bank account, we filed for nonprofit status. Everybody is collecting money that I just transferred all the collections that I've made to our real bank account because it was all between Venmo and my personal bank account. And Daniel was matching these donations with his own money. So he paid for this bus first $5,000, and then I think he took money out of his 401k just to get this stuff going, took his 40 grand out just to get the stuff going, because people need money, people need help, while governments are figuring out what to do, doing all this political talk and strategic things and sending weapons to Ukraine. But people are suffering. There is no aid. There is nothing structured. It's all this sort of volunteers that come together and on the ground and start working through their trust chains. So my message is, and what made me really guilty also thinking about it is how the war, one of our members posted, like, yeah, if somebody dies, it's like one person becomes this big deal, but when 1,000 people die, it becomes a statistic. So how is this becoming a statistic now? I guess for all of the Americans, I guess, but for me, like now it's really resonating, and it really made me feel guilty thinking about the other wars that are happening around the world that our country, US, is involved with, and how we are looking at it as a statistic because it doesn't personally affect us. So that really made me aware of that as well. So I don't know how much time do I have. I would like to share the screen with our donate visual. So yeah, that's the visual that Adriana is, oh gosh, I don't know why is it.
Galina, we have about 10 minutes left.
Okay, great. So this is the visual that Adriana put as her background. Thank you so much, Adriana. And so this QR code works. You just stick a phone next to it and it takes you straight to
Galina, sweetie, they're not looking at that correct place. So you want to
okay. Let me stop the share. I'll share my entire screen. Let's see. share screen. I'll share the whole screen. So yeah, I'm gonna share the whole screen with everything here. Hold on, guys, 1 second. So yeah, oh no, it's an old website. Sorry, guys, it's too much is going on my screen. Okay, let's see, where's my visual? Right here. So do you guys see that? That's the QR code. So I just want to keep it, since this meeting is getting recorded, I guess you can even catch it. Like I can catch it. Let me see, can I catch it from the screen?
You sure can.
Yeah, so you can, so we can leave it up. So if people even watch this video on YouTube, you can, yeah, you can go straight to the website from this visual, and they're shared in the chat. Please spread the word, make everybody aware. And just to give you just a little taste, like how we came into it with our heart and soul, Daniel and I. So we've been collaborating for the last almost 4 years, doing performances together. And so this is a performance that we did in New York. So this is our last performance we did. So let me stop the share and make sure I'm sharing with the sound. Yeah. So I'm going to share. Cancel. So let's, the performance we did in New York. And so here he's singing Ukrainian song. So I'll let you guys listen to it for like 4 minutes, and then we can have some quick Q&A.
Song about Kiev. Sing it just now, Bethlehem. It's the evil forces, Those who've been in the city, it's like, I don't know, you can always like, you know where you are from how the ground is sloped, everybody just knows the angle, and
The sound's muted, Galina.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
You can't
Okay.
mute show video. Sorry. Now you're gonna have to rewind it for us.
Okay. Let's just, yeah, I muted myself. I thought, like, can you guys hear now?
Yes.
those who've been in the city, it's like, I don't know, you can always like, you know where you are from how the ground is sloped, everybody just knows the angle, and where you are, just like, it's on the hills and goes down to the river. It's like a steep thing that comes like this, or on the other side, it's like bumpy. I don't know, whoever has walked it knows the feel, I think, again, just
Okay, guys, so just a little taste of it. I don't want to take more time with that, but the patterns that I'm using here are traditional Ukrainian patterns from 18th century. So I'm trying to get to the depths of the culture here. So I'm going to stop the share, and if you guys have any questions. Oh, the music is it's a traditional Ukrainian song. It's a folk song that he's singing. Yeah.
Sorry, the musician and me gotta come here.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, Daniel has this incredible voice. He's like my husband, who's a voice teacher, who's a professional tenor, says Daniel doesn't need any lessons because he's incredible singer. So that's what we've been doing for 4 years, performing things like that. So and we trust each other as creative collaborators. That's why, you know, I totally trusted him on doing all of this great work. So yeah, so for us, it was to spread the word beyond our community that's totally mobilized right now and make it more aware. And thank you so much, Lou, for your perspective, for your introduction, because people like, yeah, the borders and the histories and unifications of countries, it's, yeah, the history is in the making now with what's happening, I think.
But it's really not a question, more of a comment, that it seems to me that everything is speeding up so fast, right? And part of that is because of the technology the US has, and you know, which Lou pointed to, this conflict to me could very easily keep going and getting larger and larger. And so one of the questions that I wanted Lou to focus on was, what can we do about it? And I think he's right. How do we bring our rulers to their knees? Or because you know, I was laughing inside because the city supposedly has $2 billion for COVID relief, and you see kids are dying and grandparents are dying, and the schools are dirty and all these things, and they spent like 10% of that money, you know, and it wasn't even on the kids. A lot of that went towards budget. So I think that we have issues here that need to be resolved too, that they haven't been paying attention to it. And this whole idea that we're going to take refugees from Ukraine, but let's lock up all the ones from Central America and Mexico and separate families. You know, there's hypocrisy there. Obviously, it's fueled by racism, but you know, yeah, I'm all for helping the Ukrainians. I just gave $40 more. I don't know how much I gave last time, right? That it's important, but it's also how are we going to make these politicians accountable for these things? Because Ukraine is just one country, and there'll be others in the future. You know, so I'm open to ideas. I still grapple with this question. What do you think, Alina? I mean, outside of Ukraine, you said you were more cognizant of the past quote unquote conflicts or war that the US had been in. But how do you think we bring this attention to our leaders? Or can you? I don't know.
I really I'm at loss here because I think like US and Russia, Soviet Union has always been in this like on the divide. So, and I don't know if there is ever going to be an agreement, because I think it's really hard to see it's really clear that US is trying to like lead this conversation, and Putin is not taking like Putin. I feel Putin behaves like a bullied kid who got enraged, and that's why he is in Ukraine. And I just feel US would know who Putin is. And Putin has been in power, like he was appointed, he was never elected, he was appointed by Yeltsin in 2000. And he considers himself a historical figure now. All his presidents have been elected 2-3 years ago, and he's been there for over 20 years. So he feels like he's fulfilling this big historical mission.
And that's so short.
and that's what's really like, my friends in Moscow are telling me, we went to all these anti-Putin's marches, we were protesting, and now we are suffering this now we are suffering the sanctions. We are stuck here, and what do we do? So it's such a difficult, it's such a difficult question. My other thing is, I think I know US is trying to bring democracies everywhere, but some countries operated differently. Like Russia is humongous, and it's really hard to it's hard to operate it. So I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for it, because I'm not
Okay.
taking any sides. I'm here trying to help get the babies out, but I see the reality. I see where it's happening, and what really strikes me is like this movie, Don't Look Up. Did you guys see that movie?
Oh yes, and yes,
So
very much so.
yes, and I feel this is what's happening right now. It's the same thing that's happening, and it's real, and it's affecting everybody. And people are just in disbelief, in like people are oblivious. Nobody cares, and that's what
I feel the same thing about this COVID surge that's coming. Not happening. We're back to normal. Not in a pandemic. Nope. And it reminds me a lot of those look up Trump supporters, you know. But yeah, well, I wouldn't even say that the U.S. is a protagonist in spreading democracy. I would say quite the opposite. But you know, we're gonna leave it on a positive note. I think this was a beautiful event.
Can I just add a word or two
You
here?
can add a minute, brother, because we're past our time. And
Okay, 1 minute.
2 minutes.
First-
I think 2.
2 minutes. First thing is that my parents, my father came from Zhytomyr, just outside of
Wow.
Kiev.
Uh-huh.
So I have some skin in the game, so to speak. But I think the thing is that we here in the United States have a very special responsibility, because the United States has played a leading role around the world in doing, in first, you know, from encircling Russia from the time of the Russian Revolution to the present time. So the United States has been dangerously doing this. It's really important to understand that there is no true independence going on here, that the United States has used Ukraine as a pawn in its game. And so if we understand that perspective, we can see something about how the United States is trying to play this situation and try to work to destabilize what the United States is trying to do and bring peace in that way. And I think to do that means to fight for what our needs are here, to take that away from the military budget, to take that away from NATO and put it into our needs here. That's what we can do every day.
Yeah, believe me. And it's not going to stop, unfortunately, you know. But I wanted to leave it on a positive note and say this was a beautiful program. I'm sorry more people didn't come. Again, it's just a question of culture and getting people motivated to come to meetings that go beyond. But are still, I mean, I wanted to tie it into labor, but we don't have time. But I think that's also something important to talk about in terms of how this is not creating jobs. Sorry, it's just not. You know, I think people are under the impression like if we go to war, the economy will improve. Nope. Didn't happen in Iraq, didn't happen in the second Iraq, did not happen during Afghanistan. This is not the way to improve the economy. It's what Lou's saying, right? So anyway, that's my bit on labor.
Come on, you good people,